looking. We'll be taking a look at the roads at the top of the hour. So if there's any accident or incident wherever you are, please keep us in the loop and we'll let the rest of the motorists know that. You can get us at K24 TV. Alternatively, you can SMS us. Our line is 21222. WhatsApp number scrolling at the bottom of your screen, so you can do exactly that. As always, let's start off by looking at the front pages of the dailies, and then I get to my panel as we dig a bit deeper as to what these stories mean, even as we move forward. Front page of the PD, celebrating the life of a statesman. Uhuru declares period of national mourning, flags fly at half-mast as family reveals Mzee to be buried at his Kabarak home. From 1924 to 2020, long life lived right there. Lots done from herdsboy to teacher to president of the republic, longest-serving president that is as well. We'll be talking about his legacy right here on the show. Front page of the Daily Nation, the last imperial president. Good man, dirty game, says the Daily Nation. He was not perfect, neither was he modern in his practice of politics, appreciation of human rights, and the finer points of economic management, but he was a good nationalist, humble and compassionate. Moi was also a wily, ruthless, self-styled, quote-unquote professor of politics who wore power like a tailor-made suit, striding across corridors of state with self-assurance at variance with his modest beginnings in Kuriengo village, Baringo County. Talking about the last imperial president and both sides of the man who was Daniel Arap Moi. Man who changed Kenya. Kenya's second president, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, passes on in Nairobi surrounded by his family. President Kenyatta declares national mourning on and flags to fly at half-mast. Mzee to be accorded state funeral on February 12, 2020. That is the lead story in your copy of your Standard this morning. Front page of the Star taking a different tone. Moi's 4-month fight for his life in hospital. Ex-president died at 5 a.m. to be accorded a full state burial therein. Talking about that particular story in your copy of your Star. And finally, the front page of the Business Daily. A colored legacy. From 1924 to 2020, Kanu powerman Daniel Arap Moi ruled Kenya for 24 years, during which his legacy was colored by economic shocks arising from high global oil prices, structural adjustment programs, and political turbulence that culminated in multi-party politics. He shaped Kenya's history and destiny like no other president has. I can get that story in detail, of course, in your copy of your Business Daily this morning. Plenty for us to discuss, even from a legacy standpoint as what he's done so far, and also the effects of what probably we're getting from that, even as we move forward. So we have a lot to discuss this morning. Let me get to my panel and introduce them as we get to that. We have Saboti MP, Honorable Caleb Amisi. Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the show. It's the first time. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. We also have governance expert Ben Muller. Good morning.
A very good one to you.
Welcome. You're a regular on the show.
Absolutely.
Yes, you know your way around the table. Fantastic stuff. We also have former Kiambu governor, astute politician, Honorable William Kabogo. Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to the show.
Asante.
Let's start off with the one story we'll be talking about for quite a while, even as we move forward. And this is the former, the late president, Daniel Arap Moi. In terms of legacy, now that you're in politics, so as you look at a person who really learned how to evolve, you know, from modest beginnings, herding, the livestock, becoming a teacher, thrust into politics, and goes all the way to the top, to the #1 position. What's your biggest takeout from his life as a politician?
Yeah, definitely a life of 24 years at the helm of the nation is something that we can talk about for a whole day, and especially his climb to the top, from the huntsman to being a teacher, to being a legislator, and then now the president. I was amused by today's Nation, where they have really, painted him as an imperial president. I think our culture cannot allow us to, have such kind of headline, because this is a statesman who has served this nation for 24 years. Nobody is perfect, and the leadership is also very challenging. And sometimes we get a perception that we live with for the rest of your life, whether it's true or not. It is a perception that people put you into. So I think it is important we celebrate his good deeds and how he has brought this country together. The peace, love, and the unity. In fact, the BBI we are talking about is really the person, is the first person to talk about BBI, because he's the person who has talked about unity, as a person who actually perpetuated tribal closeness You could see the time of Moi, there was no, this tribalism was less. And therefore, there are a lot that Moi has done for this country in terms of bringing us unity, irrespective of all the tribes who were all, the face of Kenya was in his cabinet. And that's where I think the BBI should also be focusing that what did the Moi do that brought us this country together that we are also able to copy? Because that's where we lost it as a nation. We'll
be touching on that, but very briefly, probably even in a minute or so. If, in your perspective, there was unity and less tribalism during his 24-year administration, what went wrong? Where did it...
I think nothing went wrong. Really, the expectation of people is that for the last 25 years, we should have had miracles. I mean, Kenya is not living in a vacuum. Other countries have also been at par with us, going together, African nations. It is definitely a problem with the African nation as a continent, not as a country per se. So, irrespective of the leadership that was there, the challenges are enormous beyond the leadership. So we expected probably maybe economy-wise, Kenya could be at par with the Singapore and the countries that were at par at that time. And that's why the expectations of Kenyans that after 24 years, Kenyans could have changed. But you don't expect much from an economy that was struggling in an African context. But in terms of bringing the unity, which is very, 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 very vital for our country to be together, for our country, irrespective of our cultural difference or our different heritages, but he was able to put our country together. Now going forward, the new leadership must now pick up from there and work on the economy, because he tried to put our country together. We should not destroy that fabric. We need to pick up from there and now start building the economy.
Okay, Ben, I'll come to you very quickly. What's your biggest takeout? Because like you said, you can talk until the evening, but for you, what's the one big takeout from his administration, his legacy?
Foremost, I want to sincerely pass my condolences to the families of the children who died in Kakamega. It's unfortunate the former president passed on yesterday, but we must not lose sight of that. In my view, it is the most painful thing that has happened to this country in the year 2020. 13 children dying like that and nobody's giving us an explanation is unacceptable and inexcusable. Secondly, my condolences to the family of the former president. But one thing, the conversations have been many, and the former president was many things to many Kenyans. But there are things that we must come alive to. The mixed reactions you've continued to see, especially even on social media, arrive from several things. First, Moi grew up in the intensity of the colonial era. Then he transitioned up to the 1952 state of emergency. Then in the early 60s, they formed government. He became vice president and later president. And up to the 90s, during the clamor for multi-party democracy. The one thing that stands out for me is that there will always be a problem when you overstay in what you do. Because coming from the times of the colonial era, when brutality and the use of state machinery to intimidate citizens and to when power was really power, it was not, even under normal circumstances, it is not easy for an individual to be able to transition completely to become liberal Democrat by the time he was leaving office. But we really must give it to him for the grace he demonstrated in adhering to the constitutional amendments of the IPPG arrangements of 1997 to relinquish power in 2002. That is one thing that will go in history, because there were actually opportunities for him to cling to power, and he peacefully agreed to hand over power despite the humiliation he went through at Uhuru Park, and that is something that we must never forget. Secondly, you realize President Moi assumed power in 1978. The Kenyan who was born in 1978 is 42 years today. We have to, in fact, out of the lot we have here today, it is only Mheshimiwa Kabogo who was born, if I'm not wrong. Isn't it?
You've not
So,
asked my age.
no, I want to be I want to be correct in my assumption. That means a majority of those who were born from the time President Moi became president only were actually the oldest was only 24 years when he left in 2002. That's the age they were leaving college and universities and those kinds of arrangements. That means that generation never really experienced firsthand what Moi was. Mheshimiwa Kabogo here would be able to tell us, but for us who are in school, we enjoyed the school milk and all those things. What we must be able, this generation actually, and that's why you saw there was a lot of criticism in the social media, is because to a large extent that the generation does not understand exactly what his presidency was all about, and they really don't care. The child who was born in 2002 when Moi left office is 18 years this year. So telling them about Moi really does not make much sense. What I'm trying to arrive at is the fact that we experienced, our generation, largely the President Kibaki's tenure of 10 years, and we experienced a very vibrant economy, and we are also the generation that is feeling the full brunt of the Jubilee administration the last 7 years, because there's challenges that many people want to place on Moi. We have had a huge transitional period to continue insisting on blaming Moi on things that really do not affect our day-to-day lives. So I want to choose to celebrate Moi for who he was. Really, you have to agree, despite the many challenges that his administration faced, there was massive expansion of the education sector in this country. And he opened up education to parts of this country that people never imagined would reach. And those are things that we really want to be able to appreciate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Kabogo, let me come to you as well, because when we go back to 2002, Uhuru Park, that particular moment.
Yes.
We remember the song that was sung.
All right.
And even as we're culturally sensitive to what's going on.
As a matter of fact, I was just 2 rows away.
You were there?
Yes, that was the time that I entered politics.
And it almost felt like all we needed was him to step aside.
Yes.
And from there would be, for lack of a better word, in Canada.
Well, all we needed then was not for him to step aside, was for him to be thrown out. That was the mood then.
Yes.
Right. Moi must go, Moi must go.
Your time is the kind of Bila Moi.
And guys were dancing on his vehicle, and that's when I said, oh my God, this is going to come back and haunt us.
Right.
Well, I want to join my colleagues to pass my condolences to the family of Mzee Moi, and also deep condolences to the families of the 14 kids in Kakamega who unnecessarily, very so, lost their lives. And this is something that we must make sure should never happen again. But coming to the Moi issue, I see Baba Moi himself as a very patient, humble man. It's an African for us to speak of a man in his bad days. But Moi had better good days than bad days. If Mzee Moi was not patient, he would never have made it to president. If he was not humble, you know the humiliations that Mzee Moi went through in the hands of one Goroko Njoroge. He was actually said to have been slapped on the highway. If you know what Mzee Moi went through during the Change Constitution movement, so that people wanted to change Katiba to make sure that they block him from becoming president. And I'm hoping those that want to be president should learn 1 or 2 things from President Moi.
You're one of those, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And patient space.
Right.
The patient space. So he's also the last president who has truly expressed power. You know, a strong man, quiet, firm, and very articulate in what he used to do. I attended several meetings of Moi just prior to the 2002 elections. And Moi was on time. 3 to 5 minutes if he had to be late. Nothing else. This is not something we see these days. Of course, there were issues of how one can accept change. You remember the 1992 one-party issue in Kasarani. He went there and said, this is what you want? Have it.
Right.
So even though we may think of him as a dictator, he had his moments of being patient with us, being patient with the country, and he put the country first in most times.
Right.
Of course, like every other situation in the African state, you will find the busybodies around the president are the ones who cause most of these problems that we come to think about. Because if you look at Kulei, who he was during Moi's time, was a silent, lethal man. Sir Charles Jonjo, Gigi Karaoke. All these guys were guys who are, you know, the only president who is said to have gotten into the same vehicle with members of his cabinet or his friends was Moi, because I remember seeing Moi and Gigi Karaoke and Jonjo in the same vehicle.
Right.
Just as he had taken over, and he learned the game quite quickly, and he took control of the country. Of course, during his time, the economy had a lot of problems. That is one thing that we must appreciate. But over the years, he's become a father figure. Okay. And he will be greatly missed by Kenyans.
Okay, we want your message.
Especially the Maziwa ya Nyayo. Although I didn't take Maziwa. I was in school when Mzee Kenyatta died in 1978. I was in third form. Right. So I had a clear picture of what was going on. Right. And I really pitied Uhuru because he had to give a speech during his father's burial. As young as he was, he managed. Again, patience. Because when Uhuru lost to Kibaki, the first thing he did was concede. Right. So, art of war, some of these things are skills we must learn.
Okay, and we'll have to take our first short break at that particular point in time. We want your messages as well as far as the late President Arap, Daniel Arap Moi's legacy is. What do you remember most fondly? You can get us at K24 TV. You can also SMS us on 21222. The WhatsApp number will be scrolling at the bottom of your screen. You take a short break. Then we're joined by Kiambu Central MP as well on the panel. Honorable Jude Njomo will be with us as we continue our news super review. Good morning.